Great evening, not the typical great morning to you, my friends, fellow humans. This is your boy, Dr. JC Doornick, aka the Dragon, coming to you with a recording at night. Um, Typically, what we do for Make Sense Mondays, and this is kind of an interesting idea for Make Sense Monday, because everybody's kind of always wondering, like, do I ever take a day off? And that's kind of the topic of tonight. Because every now and then stuff happens. And, one of the things that I've always tried to work into my life is to make sure that my priorities are in order. They haven't always been, are yours. So what happened this morning is my lovely wife had to do something very, very exciting and complete her citizenship process. So where does that stack up? Very, very high. More important than doing Make Sense Mondays at 8 a.m. And I'll get to that in a second. But that's what I typically do is every week, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern, we have Make Sense Mondays. And then we do that live, but then it shows up in our newsletter, which is the only place it's showing up now. So I'm excited to be able to get this done. So it is Monday, but it is the evening. So just quickly, for those of you that are following along with the Make Sense with Dr. JC Doornick podcast, that's the new podcast. Old podcast was called Rise Up with Dragon. New podcast called Make Sense with Dr. JC Doornick. Go over the pressing topics that are all going on in our heads, those discussions, those ideas of, those things that make you go, I'm very excited about the podcast. We're doing all the interviews now for the meat and potatoes after the first 8-9 episodes. Just really, really just great conversations. Whenever we have a guest on the Make Sense podcast, what we're doing is taking their topic, their profession, their expertise, and pulling the uniqueness of it out there, and just asking questions that I know you want to know. So you're going to love those interviews coming up. I'm so excited about them. I've got another one tomorrow, another one next week. We're interviewing this amazing woman who was the lead legal counsel for John Wayne Gacy, serial killer. We're going to make sense of serial killing. Isn't that interesting? So anyway, just want to give you a highlight. We just launched today the latest episode of the Make Sense podcast, and it was on the topic of sorting. Just want to give you a little bit of a highlight reel of what you can expect from that. Obviously, if you are subscribing to the podcast, you'll get the full episode. It's about a 36-minute episode. And it's on this concept of sorting and, real interesting, different than what you might think sorting means. I mean, sometimes we sort things out and we get organized. This is more of in the interface response system, the idea of just recognizing that we control what comes in and what stays out of our lives. But very often we don't know that. But we do have a filter. We have a sorting filter, but it's running subconsciously on autopilot. And that's why things that we don't need, like stuff in our house, people in our lives, very often tend to come in. So this episode is just about kind of bringing your attention to this idea that you have this filter and you can consciously craft it in a way that you will actually start to control what comes in and what comes out. But one of the things I love about this episode is it gives us the ability to first identify which is probably more important than anything, why you would want to sort. Why would you want to protect the doorway to your mind or the doorway into your life? It would start by you acknowledging how, first of all, fragile that would be. I always say that one of the hardest things that humans ever try to do is this idea of just following through, right? So if you find yourself distracted and, in an oscillating pattern of going and stopping and things like that, there's a good chance that there's a lot of shit in your life that just doesn't need to be there, and people as well. So I go into this in depth, but I reflect on this amazing interview between one of my favorite podcasters, Andrew Huberman from the Huberman Lab. And he interviews this guy, Paul Conti, a psychiatrist, just a genius, wonderful conversation. I always put these things in the notes. But But anyway, Paul Conti was just saying, he's talking about self-health. Like, how do you know that you're healthy? So in this episode, I use what he was saying as a way of saying how it's important to first recognize your power and your potential that you possess, should you not have anything unnecessary in your life. I'm very fascinated with the idea of saying, like, what would happen? What's possible if nothing went wrong, if I couldn't fail? We always hear about that. But very often, and this shows up with people saying, I just got to get out of my own way. Very often there's just a lot of stupid things and distractions in our life that create that oscillation. So Paul Conti was talking about the two major factors that we need to recognize in order to see that our real estate is so valuable and powerful and has so much potential that it would warrant this sorting process that I talk about. And he goes over these two concepts of agency and gratitude. I go over that in depth in the podcast, so make sure you listen to it. But agency, real short, is just you recognizing your power, your potential to get things done, right? And sometimes we forget about that. But when you have agency, when you recognize your personal power, and also you experience gratitude. Remember, gratitude is that which you have right now. But I go into a little bit more of gratitude and connecting the word humility to gratitude. So you got agency and you got gratitude. But when you look at gratitude in the sense of humility, that's my favorite part of the episode. You start to recognize from a humility standpoint how precious and fragile life is, right? And there's the highest form of gratitude that you could practice would be just to be, grateful that you're alive, right? Because of that fragileness, or even just recognize how just unbelievable miracle based it is that you're even here. So if you have agency and gratitude, that's the premise upon which saying, oh my God, I need to protect this, right? My potential is immeasurable if there's nothing to make me go astray. So I just think that that's a really important factor, and you'll get that in depth in the podcast. Once you have agency and gratitude, it warrants and validates this reason that you would want to protect the doorway to it. And I give this fun analogy of a bouncer that's checking IDs and going through the bar, making sure that, that bouncer's real job is quality control. Sometimes you have to escort guests out of your life and your mind. And we can also look at that in terms of your thoughts and feelings. I was having some very, very heavy duty thoughts and feelings that were anxiety based the other day. And I was able to, like a bouncer, walk through the nightclub of my mind and identify these thoughts and feelings that were not in any way, shape, or form connected or in support of what I wanted in life. So I just escorted them out with force if necessary. So enjoy that podcast episode. It's awesome. Just one last thing I want to share with you in real time. Last night, and this is a scenario that you probably know so well. Last night, I didn't get any sleep for many, many reasons. We got a lot of interesting things going on. And this mind of mine very often is racing and trying to solve all the problems of the world, even though I know about all this stuff. So I didn't get great sleep last night. And then this morning, we went and did the citizenship thing, which was another hour and a half drive. Yesterday, I drove 13 hours. It's like, this is not a complaint. I'm just trying to set the stage for the fact that today was a day that I really, really would love. Yeah, I mean, if I used logic and rationale, today would be the day that I could take a day off. As McDonald's said, say, you deserve a break today. Today was that day. So I just, want to share with you an insight. And that brings me to why I'm here doing this Make Sense Monday anyway. And it's just this idea of looking at the concept of taking a day off, right, versus taking a day on. And what's interesting about taking a day off, and I think that anyone with, using logic and rationale would say, there are certain times where, you do deserve or require and need to take some time off, to say, hey, I'm going to take a day off today and rest, right? If you're somebody that's always going hard, and there's different ways of looking at it. Some people are going at 100%, some people are going at 50%. But if you got your foot on the gas, it makes sense that you would every now and then warrant, hey, I'm going to take a day off, right? But what's interesting about it, and it's the reason that I'm here with you today, you might, if you're like me, I'm always kind of taking a gauge, or I'm always assessing that metric of when I take days off or grant myself permission to take days off. And one of the things that you'll notice is that you can very, very easily slip into this victim of circumstance status where you automatically grant yourself permission to take a day off, right? Maybe a little bit too frequently. Like today was one of those days where I just said, hey, take a day off. Yeah, I know you said that you were going to do Make Sense Mondays every Monday forever, right? But today, I mean, like, this is a unique situation. We can't do that, and you can't do it at night. It's a morning show and things like that. So the only thing I wanted to share with you with regards to that, and I'll probably go in depth in my community, on our private community, Make Sense Academy. We always welcome you guys to check that out. Risk-free, something my wife created. We've got an amazing community of people, like-minded, curious, seekers of more, right? And expansion. Make Sense Academy. We meet every morning, and we have courses and all this content, and there's business courses in there and everything like that. $24 a month. So if you're listening to this video and you're interested in that, just make sure you subscribe, and hope you'll follow us on this YouTube channel. But just comment or DM me at Dr. JC Doornick, say community or Make Sense, and I'll give you the information there. So one of the things that I always assess is this metric of how easily I'm allowing myself to take a day off. So where it gets sticky is where you start to build this pattern of allowing yourself making it easier and easier and easier to take that day off. And, that's where I was today. So I pushed in and I challenged myself on a take a day off kind of a day to, as I say, take a day on. And I just said, I'm going to do the Make Sense Monday anyway at night. As I'm speaking to you right now, I barely have any brain cells because I'm tired, right? It's totally inconvenient, and it's just difficult right now to do this. I feel good doing it, but the reality is that I'm not at my best right now, which is the exact reason why I'm doing it. Right. So the first thing I wanted to share is take an assessment of your life and how easily are you allowing yourself to take a day off. That's the first thing, because when you take a day off, very often it's not for rest. It's an excuse that's excusing you from responsibility. I made a commitment to do this show every Monday, right? And load a podcast every Monday for this year. So I'm holding to my commitment, the 4 agreements, be impeccable to your word, but also in the discomfort that I am speaking to you right now, there lies the growth, right? So I used the logic and rationale to first say, hey, I think I deserve a day off today. I'm going to take a day, right? But I've decided to take a day on because I stopped myself. And this is something that you can assess. There's no right or wrong way to do this. But I'm leaning into the discomfort, the uncomfortable zone right now, the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen being here with you today, to do this extra work. And I'm really, really excited about it because I've held myself to my word. You're going to get some great content. We've got a great newsletter coming that's accompanying this. But also as an explorer, as a curious explorer, I'm out here in the expanded zone where growth takes place. And that also reminds me that I'm serious when I say that I want to grow. So I just have so much respect for anybody that can resonate with that pushes into that inconvenient, uncomfortable place. And rather than taking that logical and rational day off, decides to take a day on. So love and appreciate you all. I'm very, very happy that we got to get this done. But yeah, check out the podcast. Come check out Make Sense Academy. We've got a really, really cool video that kind of gives you an assessment of it. It's $24, and my wife, created this, and she's in mental health. She's a sex therapist and a relationship coach, and me. So we're both in there. We've got a growing community, and people are really, really starting to become more conscious and becoming the shot callers of their life. So we hope that you'll come check that out. We have this guarantee where if somebody doesn't like it, we'll give them their $24 back. We don't want your $24, right? We want you to grow and expand. That's why we make it high value, low cost. So love and appreciate you. Have an amazing night, right? I guess the rest of the week. And for those of you that are listening to this that are in the private Make Sense Academy, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have an amazing day.